I wish you a very good morning to all my viewers and subscribers. Come on, आपने जो कमेंट बॉक्स में लिखा था, आपका डिमांड आया था कि सर आप कोई वीडियो क्लिप आप तैयार करें लेटर एंड लाइटर पर। लेटर LATER एंड लाइटर LATTER। और बिल्कुल बिना समय गंवाए मैं आपको लेकर के चलना चाहूंगा। आई वुड लाइक टू टेक यू to these sets. There are two sets here written on the board. To the right side of the board here, I have written a set in which you have to choose the correct options. And in the left side, there is also, this is second set, set B. This is set A and set B. Set A. This set consists of 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in which you have to choose the correct option. And in set B, again, this set also consists of 5 questions. And in this set, set B, you have to detect the erroneous part. And all the questions already mentioned in set A and set B are related to the words later and lighter. So come on. First, we would like to discuss over these words and we would here understand. We would try our best to see what the word later is and what the word latter is. So if we see these two words in the dictionary, especially the standard dictionary, we find that the word later, here I have written here the spelling of this word LATER, and after that there is a slash mark, and between two slash marks here its phonetic transcription is mentioned, means how this word is pronounced. So its pronunciation is later. Here you find that R is mentioned in bracket, means that R sound is hidden, that is pronounced, but it is pronounced very little. Later. And after seeing the pronunciation, the phonetic transcription, we see that this word LATER, later, is used mainly as an adverb and also as an adjective. Now, when we see the word LATTER, later, we find here, this is the phonetic transcription of this word later. And when we find the parts of speech of this word in the dictionary, we find that this word is used as an adjective and also as a noun. And here, just below it, I have written here with this star mark that the latter is used as noun, singular or plural both. Means when the word later is preceded by the definite article the, this word the latter is used also as a noun singular or a noun plural. We have not to mention that when we have to mention the word the latter as the plural form, so its plural form will be the latters. No, it would be wrong. If we mention the word the latters, it would be wrong. So we have to keep it in our mind. We have to remember it that the latter is used singularly and also in the plural form. Come on now. So later, this word means adverb. This word adverb means taking place next. Taking place next. Taking place next. If something happens later, means the thing that happens next. And here its antonym is earlier. Here, and this is used as an adverb, just as he came later. He came later. Here in this sentence, later is adverb, and latter is used as a noun. Here it has been already mentioned. So now we will see, just after seeing these 5 sentences, after having minute observation over these 5 sentences, we will be very easily sure, we will be very easily confirmed of how to use these words and where to use these words. So come on now, let us pay attention to the first sentence. And the first sentence is, I would like to recite the words used in the first sentence. After the publication of this volume, the second volume on this topic was published later or later. Here, later or later. I would like to tell you that later is used for showing if 2 things are mentioned. Note here important. If two things, if we discuss 2 things or if we mention 2 things, the second thing coming in the second position, in the sequence, in the order, the second thing that comes on the second position is represented by the word the latter. The latter. Yeah. If 2 things happen, if we discuss 2 things, in these sentences you will find, just as here, after the publication of this volume, the second volume on this topic was published later. Later. Was published when? When was the second volume of this book published? The second volume was published later. Later. And here, which one will be mentioned? After the publication of this volume. Suppose there are 2 volumes, if any book is published in 2 volumes, the first volume and the second volume. So, regarding those 2 volumes here, this sentence is mentioned. After the publication of this volume, there are 2 volumes. So, after the publication of this volume, the second volume on this topic was published when? When was the second volume published? The second volume was published later and the first volume was published earlier. Here later will be used and later will be wrong, and this later is adverb. Why? Because it here mentioned, it is mentioned here for adverb of time, for representing adverb of time. When was the second volume of this book published? The second volume of this book was published later. Later is here adverb. And the later or latter proved to be more informative, and the later or the latter. You find here that in this sentence, the plus here is mentioned, the is determiner, and the arrival of the word the shows that here there will be the use of noun, and you find that later is used only as an adverb or adjective. So what is used as a noun? Later is also used as an adjective and also used as a noun. And here 2 things have been already discussed in the first sentence. What? The first volume and the second volume. So the second volume was published later, and the latter means what? The second volume, not the first volume. The latter here noun. The latter proved, this is the subject, and proved is the finite verb of this subject. And the latter means, and the second volume proved to be more informative. How did the second volume prove to be? The second volume means the latter proved to be more informative than the earlier one, than the previous one, than the first volume. So I hope that the first sentence would have been very clear to you and you would have been very confident and confirmed. May I proceed to the second sentence? Okay, thank you. So now, let us discuss the second sentence. And the second sentence is, the later or latter half of the year 2020. Most important. The word is half. This half is noun and its plural form of half is halves. This is noun here. So the later half of the year 2020 or the later half of the year 2020. Every year, whether the year is 2019, 2020 or 2021, that is already at the present time is going on. So every year is divided into two parts. The first half and the second half. The first half of a year is from January to June, and the second May. Okay, or you may say January to June, and the second half of the year is from July to December. So here the later or the latter half. What? The later half or the latter half? Yeah, the latter half means the second half. The latter half. The latter half of the year 2020 means from July to December. That very duration is being here represented. So the latter half of the year 2020 proved, and this later is working here as an adjective qualifying half noun, and this half is working as the subject and its finite verb is proved, that is V2. The latter half of the year 2020 proved to be more troublesome than the earlier one did. Earlier one means the earlier one, the latter half. The latter half of the year 2020 means the duration between July to December of 2020 proved to be more troublesome than what the earlier one did, means than the earlier one proved. Earlier one means the first half from January to June. And I hope that the second sentence would have been also very easily been clear, where later will be used here or latter would be used here. So, do you give me the permission to proceed to the third sentence? May I go? May I discuss? Thank you. So now, to the third sentence. The later or the latter years after 2020. Here it was the latter half of the year 2020. Pay attention here, most important. This is a markable point. This is the markable here, the turning. Here in the second sentence it is mentioned the latter half of the year 2020. But in the third sentence, the later or the latter years. Years, not a year, years. So 1 year was divided into two parts. The first half and the second half. But here it is years. This is uncountable. This is not definite that 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Years. What will be used here? Correct. The later years. The later years. Not the latter years. Because latter is used especially between two things for representing the second one, not the first one. So the later years, noun is being qualified by this adjective here. So the later years means the forthcoming years, the years that is already coming, the forthcoming years, the later years after 2020 means 2021, 2022, 2023 and onwards. So the later years after 2020 may appear to be favorable. This is the probability or the possibility of about the coming years, about the forthcoming years after 2020. So the later years after 2020 may appear how? How may the later years appear? The later years after 2020 may appear to be favorable, not troublesome, favorable after the vaccines come later or later in India. After the vaccines come later means next onward. After the vaccines come later in India, and this later is what? Adverb when. Sorry, not adjective. Adverb. When? Later. After the vaccines come. When? When do the vaccines come? The vaccines come later in India. And I hope the third sentence would also have been very clearly understood by you. Okay, come on to the fourth sentence. One boy. Very easily this sentence will be convinced by me. I will try my best to convince the fourth sentence very easily. The fourth sentence is one boy. How many boys? One boy and two girls. One boy and two girls started running in the race. How many participants were there in the race? How many participants? Total number of participants were 3. One boy and two girls. Here two subjects have been already included with the conjunction and here. So one boy and two girls started running in the race in which the later were able. In which the later were able. Here what is finite verb? What is finite verb? And the use of the determiner, it shows that there is the requirement of a noun as the subject. So later is not used as a noun. Later is adjective here. Later is adjective and adverb. What is noun? Later is used as an adjective and noun. So what will be used here? One boy and two girls started running. What do they start? What did they start? They started running in the race. And in which means in the race, the later were able. Means who were able? The two girls here. The later here is mentioned for representing two girls. The latter were able. Who? The boy was able? No. The auxiliary verb, this is why here it is mentioned in the plural form, verb. Why? Because the latter here stands, the word the latter, this noun comes especially for what? The secondly mentioned noun, and the secondly mentioned noun is what? Two girls. This is mentioned in the plural form. That's why we mention here verb. So one boy and two girls started running in the race in which the latter means who? The two girls were able to reach the destination in the race. Who were able to reach the destination in the race? The latter. The latter means what? The boy or the two girls? Exactly, the two girls, not the boy, was able to reach the destination. So we are able to reach the destination when the latter were able to reach the destination when? Later or later? When were they able to reach the destination? Later. Here adverb is required. And when, because it replies the interrogative word when, and later is adjective and noun only, not an adverb. So here there is the requirement of adverb because it is here replying the question when. And you must remember that the word that comes especially as the answer of three words: how, when, and where. If any word comes as the answer of three words: how, when, and where, undoubtedly you have to being very bold, you have to declare that the words are adverbs. Which words are adverbs? The words that come as the answers of three interrogative words: how, when, and where. So here, already the fourth sentence has been also solved. I would like to read the fourth sentence again. One boy and two girls started running in the race, in which the latter means the two girls were able to reach the destination when? When were the girls able to reach the destination? Earlier? No, later. Later. Adverb. Come on to the fifth sentence, the last sentence of set A. In spite of coming later or later. This fifth sentence is also related to the fourth sentence. This is correlated. What happened in the fourth sentence is also mentioned in the fifth sentence. Means I am already discussing here in the fifth sentence about the race. So, in spite of coming later or later. Who came later in the fourth sentence? The two girls, correct. So, in spite of coming later, in spite of means though they came later, who came later? The two girls came later. So, in spite of coming later, coming when? Again here, it replies the answer, it replies the question, what? When? In spite of coming when? In spite of coming later. In spite of coming later. This one, not later. In spite of coming later, the later or the latter were declared. What? Here the use of the, it shows that this determiner comes before a noun. So what is a noun? Undoubtedly later is a noun. In spite of coming later, the latter were declared. Means who were declared? The latter. And who were the latter? The two girls were latter. Two girls were declared to be the winners. Though the two girls came later, the latter means the two girls were declared to be the winners. Winners. So who were declared to be the winners? The two girls were declared to be the winners. In the later or in the latter decision, decision is here noun here. The decision is only one. In the later decision or in the latter decision, decision noun is required here. This noun requires an adjective to be qualified. So what will be used? The later decision or the latter decision? There is only one decision. In the later decision means in the next decision. In the later decision, the first L-A-T-E-R, later, not the later. In the later decision, made what? Later or later. Made when? Made later, not at the present time. Made later means made next. Again later, not later. Made later by the later or later jury. Finally, by the later jury or later jury, by the later jury, later by the later jury, finally, by the later jury, here jury noun is required to be qualified by the adjective. Later is here adjective. By the later jury, finally. Now, after solving the 5 questions of set A, I would like to draw your attention to the set B here. That is most important because these types of questions are generally asked in the competitive questions, and you find that generally most of the examiners means it has been already informed me, and many of the examiners tell me that sir, we are not able to identify or to detect the erroneous part, especially in the sentences. This is why I have decided to make here or to give you here 5 sentences related to the what? Related to the error detection. Means in these 5 sentences, in these 5 sentences there are 4 parts. Means every sentence has been divided into 4 parts. Part A, part B, part C, and the last part is no error D. Basically, every sentence has been divided into three parts, part A, B and C, and the last part is no error D. If there is no error in any part of the sentence, the answer would be part D. But if there is an error in the sentence, the part especially consisting of the error will be the answer. So let us now to the set B. Detect the erroneous part. What have you to do? You have to find out the what? Wrong part. Erroneous is an adjective that has been derived from the verb err. E-R-R. Err is verb. Error. E-R-R-O-R. Error noun. Erroneous. E-R-R-O-N-E-O-U-S. Erroneous adjective. And erroneously. E-R-R-O-N-E-O-U-S-L-Y. Erroneously adverb. I have already discussed here about the word erroneous because in so many exams sometimes the synonymous words are asked. So what is the root word of this word? Verb, error, noun, erroneous, adjective, erroneously, adverb. And errata, the typing mistake, is what called? Erratum, singular, and plural is errata. So all these words are related to the same word family. The basic word or the root word is E-R-R-R. So come on now to these five sentences. First sentence. He met Ram and Shyam. Whom did he meet? Whom did he meet? Whom did he? He means the subject. Whom did he meet? He met two persons. Who are the two persons? Ram and Shyam. He met Ram and Shyam and found. Who found? He found. The subject he met, he did. The subject he did two activities. The first activity of meeting Ram and Shyam and the second activity of finding. What did he find? He found that the later became nervous later. He found that the later, here in this sentence, in the first sentence, later has been used twice. In part B, that the later became nervous later. Which part would be erroneous? Or if there is no error in the first sentence, the answer would be D. What's your answer? Correct. The arrival of the word the, this shows, determiner shows that this later here there is the requirement of what? A noun. But later is not a noun. What is required here? L-A-T-T-E-R. Later. L-A-T-T-E-R. Because here means who are? That the later became nervous means who became nervous? Ram or Shyam? Correct. Here latter represents Shyam. The latter became nervous. When? When did the latter become nervous? Later means next. This later is adverb. So part, what is the answer? Part B is the answer. Later will be replaced by the word later and its answer is part B. I hope that you would have been satisfied with the reasons I gave you. So now do give me the permission to proceed to the second sentence. Thank you. So to the second sentence. Now, the man rising later than his friend gets more than the later does. The man rising later. The man rising later. When? The man rising when? The man rising later means here this replies the interrogative word when, and here it is suitable means this later is working here as the adverb because it is replying when. The man rising when? Rising later, not earlier. The man rising later than his friend means this man rises later than what his friend does. His friend rises. So the man rising later than his friend, the man gets more. The man rising later than his friend gets more. And this gets is the finite verb, V5. Finite verb, what is its subject? Its subject is the man. So the man rising later than his friend gets more. How much? More is here adverb. Gets more. Adverb of quantity. Gets more. Adverb. Gets more than what? The later does. The later does. Here the use of the. This here determiner shows what? There is the requirement of a noun. Later is wrong. What will be mentioned here? The latter. So here the later does. Later here means what? His friend. Means again I would like to repeat the second sentence. The man rising later than his friend. Rising later than his friend. Means this man rises later than his friend. Means who rises first? His friend rises first. The man rising later than his friend. Means who rises first? His friend rises first. The man rising later than his friend gets more. Who gets more? Though he rises later, the man gets more than whom? Than the latter does. Means than the latter gets. Means than his friend gets. I think this time you would have been sure, you would have been confident why to use latter here. So which part is erroneous in the second sentence? Part C. And answer is part C. Come on to the third sentence. The latter years of this century are expected. The latter years. I have already told you that the word latter is used especially for representing the second thing or the second part if something is in twos. So here the latter years. Do you think here that there are 2 years here? Or 2 parts? No. Years. So many years. The latter years of this century or the later years of this century. No? The later years of this century. The later means when? Which years? Means the years coming next. The forthcoming years. The later years. Here later is required. Later, not later. Later. This later is here adjective qualifying years now. So the later years of this century are expected. What are expected to be troublesome? The later years means the years that are to come. The years coming next. Those years are expected to be troublesome. Very problematic. The coming years are going to be. So the later years of this century are expected to be troublesome. And which part is erroneous here? Part A. Because here latter was mentioned and in place of later would be mentioned for qualifying years now. And the answer of part of the sentence number 3 is part A. Come on now to the fourth sentence. The later half of this century. The later half. Pay attention here, half. Here it shows that the century means the duration of 100 years is century, and the century is divided into 2 parts. The first half and the second half. The first half is the earlier half, and the second half is the later half. So what the later half is, right? Later half. Because the century has been divided into 2 parts. First 50 years is the first half. The second 50 years is the second half, means the later half. So what is required here? Half noun is required to be qualified. Half noun is required to be qualified not by later but by latter. This is adjective here. the latter half, not the first half, not the earlier half, the latter half of this century is expected to be the least troublesome. Least is the superlative form of little, less, and least. So this is least is adjective, superlative form, ADJ3 qualifying here. The least troublesome. The least troublesome is what? Adjective, and here this is also adjective here. The least troublesome. This is the superlative form of little troublesome, less troublesome, and least troublesome. Here, the least troublesome. Now, come on. The later half of this century is expected to be the least troublesome, to be the least problematic, to be the least difficult, not the most difficult, to be the least difficult. What is expected to be the least difficult, least problematic, or least troublesome? The latter half of this century. The latter half means the second half of this century is expected to be the least troublesome. So here, which part is here erroneous? Part A. And answer of this question number 4 is A. Now to the fifth sentence of the second set B, means the last question. The letters sent by Raju and Ramesh. What? The letters sent by whom? Two persons, Raju and Ramesh. The letters, Letters. The letters sent by Raju and Ramesh reached me. What reached me? The letters reached me. Who wrote me the letters? Two persons wrote me the letters. What are the names of those two persons? The names of those two persons are Raju and Ramesh. So, again, I would like to read the fifth sentence. The letters sent by Raju and Ramesh reached me. The letters reached me, means came to me. Later or later here, but reached me later or later. Reached me when? Later. Reached me later. But the one sent by the later reached me what? Reached me very promptly? No. Reached me later, means reached me next. But the one, means but the one here, one stands for the later. There were two letters sent to me, and those two letters were written by whom? Two persons, Raju and Ramesh. Raju wrote another letter, Ramesh wrote another letter. So, but the one, means but the one letter, the one means the letter. Which letter? Whose letter? Sent by the letter. Whose letter? Sent by the letter. Here, there is the use of the. And this use of the determiner shows that here there is the requirement of what? Noun. And letter is not a noun. Letter means what? And sent by the latter. But the one sent by the latter means whose letter? Sent by the latter. Two names here have been mentioned. Here two names have been mentioned. The first name is of Raju. Second name is of Ramesh. So whose letter made me emotional? The latter, the later, but the one means the letter sent by the latter. Means whose letter? Raju's letter or Ramesh's letter? Correct. Ramesh's letter made me emotional. So here Ramesh's letter made me emotional. So which part is erroneous here? Part C, and answer is part C. I hope that the problems regarding later and later would have been very clearly understood by you all. I would like to know your comments, whether my discussion, whether my approach tried my best, tried to convince you most and convince you exactly or promptly or not. I am waiting impatiently for your comments. So now let us going to stop let my now. I am going to stop my today's discussion. That's all. Thank you. Best of luck.